boy had always been quiet. People noticed that about him first, long before they noticed anything else. He didn't talk much, and when he did, his voice was soft, almost like he was afraid someone might tell him to stop speaking. He moved through the streets of his small neighborhood like a shadow slipping between corners, never trying to draw attention. The only time he seemed truly alive was when he walked past a piano, even if it was broken, dusty, or had only a few keys that still worked. His eyes always softened, and he slowed his steps as if the piano called out to him. He didn't own a piano at home. His family lived in a small, simple room that barely fit the essentials. There was no space for something big like a piano, and even if there had been, they couldn't afford one. His family struggled most days, trying to make enough to buy food and cover basic needs. The boy understood this, even though no one ever explained it directly. When he saw how tired his parent came home each night, how carefully they stretched every bit of money, he decided he had to help in his own way. He wasn't strong enough to work heavy jobs. He wasn't old enough for real work anyway. But he had something he could offer, something small, something most grown-ups laughed at when he first mentioned it. He could play the piano. At least he believed he could. He had never taken a lesson, and he didn't know any big musical terms. But whenever he touched piano keys, he felt something inside him come alive. He felt safe. He felt understood. There was an old piano in the corner of a tiny shop near the market. It was dusty and had a few chipped keys, and the owner kept it mostly for decoration. People rarely touched it because it always seemed like it might fall apart. The boy discovered it one afternoon when he was passing by after school. He heard a sound, a small, sharp note, coming from inside. Someone must have bumped into it. The note was rough and uneven, but to him, it felt like a door opening. From that day on, he passed by the shop every chance he got. He never touched it at first. He would just look at it through the open doorway while pretending to examine something else. Sometimes he waited until the shop was almost empty and then quietly approached the corner where the piano sat. His fingers would hover over the keys, trembling slightly, but he never dared press them. He worried the owner would yell at him or worse, ban him from the shop completely. One afternoon, though, his hunger grew too strong to ignore. He had barely eaten that day, and his stomach pinched with sharp little pains. He knew his family had even less at home. When he stepped into the shop, he saw the owner arranging a few snacks on the counter. A sudden idea, bold and desperate, flashed in his mind. "Can I play something?" he asked quietly. The owner turned, looking surprised. He didn't expect the boy to speak, and certainly not ask something like that. The boy swallowed and added, "If I play good, can I get something small to eat? Just a piece." The owner blinked, then let out a laugh. Not a cruel laugh, but the kind adults use when they think a child is saying something silly. "You? Play?" he said. "That piano barely works. And what can you even play on that?" A couple of customers nearby heard this and chuckled too. They didn't mean any harm. They just thought it was amusing that a skinny boy, dressed in worn clothes, wanted to play an old piano for food. Sounded like a joke. One man said, "Let him try. I want to see this." The owner shrugged, half amused and half curious. "All right," he said. "Play something. If it sounds good, I'll give you a small snack. Not a big one, just something simple." The boy nodded, though his heart began pounding so loudly, he thought everyone could hear it. He took a deep breath and moved toward the piano. He wiped the dust off with his sleeve and sat on the edge of the wobbly bench. The room felt bigger suddenly, as if even the air was waiting to hear what he would do. He pressed one key gently. It made a dull, uneven sound. Someone in the back laughed lightly, but the boy didn't stop. He pressed another, then another, until he felt the old rhythm in his fingers returning. It took only a few seconds for everything around him to fade. The laughter, the hunger, the dusty smell of the shop. The only thing that mattered was the music. He closed his eyes and began to play. Not loudly, not perfectly, but with heart. Each note carried a piece of him. His hope, his fear, his longing to be heard. The melody flowed out in a way no one expected. The owner stopped wiping the counter. The customers stopped whispering. Even the little child standing near the door turned to watch. The boy played a tune he had made up long ago, one he practiced on random surfaces. Tabletops, his own legs, bits of broken keyboards he found near trash bins. The music was gentle but full of emotion, like someone telling a story without any words. As the melody grew, the shop seemed to grow quieter. People leaned closer, surprised. They had expected noise. They had expected something funny or clumsy. But instead, they heard something that touched them. The boy's fingers moved smoothly, finding the right notes even on broken keys. He didn't seem to think about what he was doing. He simply felt the music, and the music guided him. When he finally stopped playing, the shop remained silent for a moment. Not because people didn't know what to say, but because they were still trying to understand what they had just heard. The boy slowly opened his eyes, unsure of what their faces would show. Then someone clapped. Soft at first, then louder. Soon everyone in the small shop was clapping. The boy looked down, embarrassed and unsure how to react. He wasn't used to praise. He had expected them to laugh again, maybe even tell him to go away. But instead, they looked at him with surprise and something else, respect. The owner stepped forward, his expression completely different now. "You played that?" he asked quietly. The boy nodded. "That wasn't just good," the owner said. "That was real music." The boy didn't know what to say. He simply waited. The owner reached behind the counter and handed him a small bag with food inside. "Here," he said. "You earned it. And if you ever want to play again, you can come anytime. You don't have to ask." The boy took the food with both hands, almost afraid it might disappear. He whispered a soft thank you and stepped outside. As he walked down the street, he felt lighter, not just because of the food he carried, but because something had changed. For the first time, someone had seen his talent. Not as a joke, not as a strange habit, but as something real. He didn't know it yet, but this small moment, this simple performance in a tiny shop, was only the beginning. Something bigger was waiting for him, just around the corner. But for now, he was just a hungry boy who played for a piece of food, and finally someone listened. The days after the boy played in the small shop felt different, even if he tried to act the same as always. He still walked through the narrow streets quietly, still kept his head lowered when passing by groups of people, and still tried not to take up too much space anywhere he went. But something inside him had shifted. He could feel it whenever he remembered the sound of the piano under his fingers, the way everyone had stopped talking, the way their eyes had softened. It was the first time in his life that people listened to him, not with annoyance or impatience, but with real attention. The owner of the shop began greeting him with a friendly nod whenever he passed by. Sometimes the boy would step inside and sit at the old piano again, even if he wasn't playing for food. The owner didn't mind. He said the shop felt calmer when the boy played, like the music carried away some of the stress of the day. Customers also began stopping just to listen. Some bought things afterward, saying the music made them feel more relaxed. The owner joked one afternoon, "You're better for business than a sale sign." The boy only smiled shyly. He didn't know how to take compliments. Praise felt like something new, something too big for him to hold without dropping. Still, he kept visiting the shop whenever he could. Every moment he spent at the piano felt like he was learning something more about himself, something he had never been able to say out loud. The piano didn't judge him. It didn't laugh. It didn't care that he wasn't wearing nice clothes or didn't speak loudly. The keys welcomed him the same way each time, and he felt safe there. But word travels fast in small neighborhoods, especially when something unusual happens. Soon, more people knew about the boy who played the dusty piano for food. Some came because they were curious. Others came because they had heard about his talent and wanted to see it for themselves. A few came just to stare and whisper, unsure if the story was true. One afternoon, the shop became more crowded than usual. A group of teenagers stood near the door, whispering and looking at the boy as he played. They weren't laughing, but their expressions were uncertain. A couple of older customers sat in chairs near the counter, listening quietly. Even the owner stayed close by, pretending to organize items while actually paying full attention to the boy's hands. The boy could feel their eyes on him. At first, it made him nervous. His fingers trembled a little when he started playing. He wasn't used to so many people watching. But the moment the melody began to flow, his nerves started to settle. The music always did that. It filled the space around him and softened the world. The notes moved through the air like a gentle wave, and soon the room grew still. The boy felt his breathing slow, his hands finding the rhythm they knew so well. When he finished, there was no laughter, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when people don't know how to express what they feel. Then slowly people clapped. Soft at first, then louder. The boy looked up, surprised. The teenagers weren't whispering anymore. One of them said, "I didn't know someone our age could play like that." Another added, "This piano sounds better when you play it." The boy didn't know how to answer. He simply nodded and stepped down from the bench. Later that evening, as the sun turned the sky orange, he walked home with a strange feeling in his chest. He wasn't used to so many people watching him without judgment. It made him hopeful but also scared. He wondered if he could keep playing like that, or if one day people would lose interest. At home, his parent looked tired as usual, but when they noticed the small treats he brought back from the shop, they smiled in a way the boy had rarely seen. "Where did you get this?" they asked softly. The boy hesitated for a moment. "I played the piano at the shop again," he said. His parent nodded slowly. "As long as you're safe," they said, placing a gentle hand on his head. The boy knew his parent didn't fully understand what was happening, but that was okay. He didn't know how to explain it either. One day, something unexpected happened. The shop owner approached him with a thoughtful expression as soon as he walked in. "I have something to show you," he said. The boy followed him to the corner of the shop, where the old piano stood. But this time it looked different. It had been cleaned. The dust was gone. The keys had been wiped. Someone had polished the wood, making it shine faintly under the shop lights. "A customer offered to help fix it a bit," the owner explained. "Said it was a shame to leave it in such bad shape when a kid like you plays it so well." He paused, then added, "People notice you, you know. They come here hoping to hear you." The boy blinked, speechless. He reached out and touched the keys, feeling the smoother surface. They still weren't perfect. Some notes still sounded off, but they felt alive, like the piano was waking up. When he began to play, the sound was clearer than before. The melody carried through the shop, floating past shelves and aisles. The owner stood with his arms crossed, listening with a proud smile. A couple of people outside paused at the door, leaning in to hear better. The boy didn't understand why all of this was happening. He just knew it felt good to play, and even better when people listened. But not everyone reacted the same way. There were still a few people who didn't get it. One customer muttered once that the boy was just showing off. Another said he probably had too much free time and should be studying instead. But their voices faded quickly compared to the growing number of people who supported him. One evening, the boy stayed longer than usual at the shop. It was quiet, with only a few customers wandering in. The owner sat on a stool behind the counter, counting the day's earnings. The boy played softly, not a big melody this time, just a simple tune he made up on the spot. After a while, the owner said, "You know, you've got something special. You don't see this kind of talent every day." The boy hesitated. "Do you really think so?" "I do," the owner replied. "And I'm not the only one. People talk about you. They come here because of you. You make the place feel warmer." The boy looked down at his hands. They were small, thin, and sometimes shaky. "I just like playing," he whispered. "That's exactly why you're good," the owner said. The next day, when the boy arrived, he noticed someone standing near the piano. It was a woman he had never seen before. She wore simple clothes and had a kind expression on her face. She watched him with quiet curiosity. When he sat down, she said gently, "Go ahead, play something." The boy didn't know why she asked, but he didn't feel uncomfortable. There was something calm about her presence. So he began playing, slowly at first, then with more confidence as the melody grew. When he finished, the woman smiled. "You have a gift," she said. "Not everyone can play with feeling like that." The boy didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. Before she left, The woman spoke to the shop owner for a few minutes. The boy couldn't hear what they said, but the owner kept glancing in his direction with a thoughtful look. When she walked out, the owner approached the boy. "She's from a small music academy," he explained. "She said she wants you to visit sometime. Not a class, not a test, just a visit to see how you feel playing a real piano." The boy felt a mix of fear and excitement. He had never played on a real piano before. Only old ones, broken ones, forgotten ones. The idea of touching a real instrument made his stomach flutter. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," the owner said. "No pressure. But it could be a good chance for you." The boy looked at the piano. He thought about the way people listen now, the way the melodies felt inside him, the warmth in the shop when he played. Maybe it was time to try something new. As he walked home that evening, he felt the world around him shift again. Quietly, gently, like the start of a new melody forming in his mind. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. The sound of the piano was going to take him somewhere he had never imagined. The days that followed felt different for the boy, almost like the world had decided to shift in small, gentle ways he didn't fully understand. The shop owner's words replayed in his mind again and again. The woman from the music academy had listened to him with real interest, not curiosity or amusement, but the kind of attention people give when they see something worth nurturing. That alone was enough to keep him thinking for hours as he walked to school, walked home, or wandered the streets with his hands tucked into his pockets. He kept going to the shop every day after school. The old piano was cleaner now, and even though a few keys still sounded rough, it felt like the instrument had woken up, like it wanted to be played. The boy spent more time practicing, discovering new melodies without really trying. Music came to him naturally, flowing through his fingers like it was part of him. Soon, something else began happening. People didn't just stop to listen, they started recording him. First, he didn't even notice. He was too focused on the music to pay attention to phones pointed in his direction. It wasn't until one afternoon, when the shop owner said, "You're becoming a little famous, you know," that the boy realized something was happening outside the small walls of the shop. "What do you mean?" he asked, confused. The owner pointed at his phone. "Look at this. Someone posted a video of you playing here. It already has thousands of views. People are sharing it, saying they can't believe a kid your age can play like that." The boy stared at the screen, unsure whether to feel proud or scared. He had never imagined himself on the internet. He didn't even have a phone of his own. Seeing his own hands moving across the keys, hearing the emotion in the melody, something he had never noticed while playing, felt strange and unreal. "Is this good?" he asked quietly. The owner smiled. "It's very good. People are noticing you. They're impressed." But with the sudden attention came more visitors. More people walked into the shop saying they'd seen the video and wanted to hear the boy play for themselves. Some were supportive. Some were simply curious. A few acted like they were discovering something before everyone else. The shop grew busier than it had been in years. The owner often joked, "I should put a tip jar next to the piano just for you. You're bringing in more customers than anything on sale." The boy always laughed shyly, brushing the idea away. Despite the excitement, he stayed humble. He didn't play for fame or attention. He played because the piano made him feel alive. But it was nice, strange but nice, to see people enjoying something he created. The boy's parent also noticed the change. Neighbors mentioned the video. Some people from the community came by their home, telling them how talented the boy was. His parent listened quietly, unsure how to respond to sudden praise coming from all directions. That night, they gently pulled the boy aside. "People are saying you're being talked about everywhere," they said. "Is that true?" The boy nodded. "I think so, but I didn't do anything special. I just played." His parents sighed, pulling him into a soft hug. "You're special to me, no matter what anyone says. But I'm glad they see what I've always seen. Just be careful. Sometimes, attention isn't always simple." The boy didn't fully understand the warning, but he appreciated the gentle tone. One afternoon, as he was playing, he noticed the shop owner waving someone inside. When he finished the melody, he turned and saw a man holding a professional-looking camera and microphone. He wore a friendly smile and had a calm voice. "Hello there," the man said. "I'm from a local news channel. We've heard about your videos online, and people suggested we interview you. Would you be okay with that?" The boy froze. He looked at the shop owner, unsure of what to say. "You don't have to if you don't want to," the owner said softly. "It's your choice." The boy swallowed, feeling his heart beating fast. "What would I have to do?" he asked. "Just talk a little about how you learned to play," the reporter said. "And maybe play a short piece for us on camera. It would be a small segment, but it might inspire other kids who have talent like you." The boy hesitated. He wasn't used to attention. He didn't like talking about himself. But part of him also felt excited, like this could be something important. "Okay," he finally said. The shop owner's face brightened with pride. The interview took place in the shop itself. They arranged the piano in a brighter spot, where natural light from the window made the old wood glow a little. The reporter asked simple questions. How he learned, why he played, what music meant to him. The boy answered honestly. He didn't try to sound impressive. He spoke exactly the way he felt. Then he played. He chose a melody that was soft at first, then slowly grew stronger, filling the shop with warmth. The reporter and cameraman stood quietly, absorbing every note. When the segment aired the next evening, people in the neighborhood gathered around their TVs to watch. Kids who barely noticed the boy before now pointed at the screen with wide eyes. Adults whispered, surprised at how someone so young could play with such emotion. Over the next week, everything changed even more. The video from the news segment spread online. Comments poured in, people praising him, calling him talented, gifted, unbelievable. Some even asked how they could support him, if he had a teacher, if he wanted to pursue music. The boy never imagined strangers from faraway places would hear his music. The thought filled him with a mix of wonder and disbelief. Then one day, the woman from the small music academy returned. She waited patiently as the boy finished playing. When he stood up, she smiled warmly and asked, "Have you thought about visiting the academy like I suggested?" The boy nodded slowly. "I have, but I'm scared I won't fit in, or that I'll play something wrong." "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "Just be yourself. The academy isn't looking for perfection. We look for passion, and you have that. If you ever feel ready, the door is open." The boy looked at the piano again. His fingers tingled like they wanted to move without him. He wondered what a real piano felt like. One that wasn't dusty or broken or missing pieces. The woman continued, "We don't want anything from you. We just want to help you grow if this is something you truly love. No pressure." He nodded again. Maybe I can visit. Just once. "Whenever you're ready," she said. That night, as he walked home, he felt the world stretching out in front of him in ways he never imagined possible. He thought about the academy, the people who believed in him, the shop that had become his safe place, and even the strangers who now knew his music. But the moment that struck him most happened later that week. He was playing one of his favorite melodies, a song he created on accident one day while tapping on a table at school. The shop was filled with people. Regular customers, neighbors, new visitors who came only to hear him play. Someone asked the owner if the boy would play something emotional, something soft. He began playing a piece he rarely shared, one that carried parts of his past he never talked about. The melody floated across the room like a quiet confession. People listened with full attention, some even closing their eyes. A woman in the back wiped away a tear. A man near the counter leaned forward, unable to look away. Even children, usually restless, sat still. The shop owner whispered under his breath, "Amazing." When the last note faded, silence filled the room for several seconds. No one laughed. No one whispered. No one made a sound. Then the clapping began. Slow, then building, spreading through the shop like a wave. People clapped not because they were surprised this time, but because they were moved. The boy stood, unsure what to do with the sudden attention, unsure how to handle the emotion in the room. The shop owner placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not just playing music anymore," he said softly. "You're touching people's hearts." For the first time, the boy believed it. That night, the world outside felt bigger, brighter, and full of new possibilities. And somewhere in the middle of all the excitement, one gentle thought kept echoing in his mind. This was only the beginning. The day after the small performance at the community center, the boy woke up with the same mix of excitement and worry that had followed him for years. He never knew what each day would bring. Some days felt like long struggles. Some days carried small sparks of hope. And now, after everything that had happened, he felt as if life was slowly shifting into something new. But he didn't want to assume anything. He had grown up learning that nothing was ever guaranteed. He sat at the small dining table in his home, watching his mother quietly prepare breakfast from whatever they had left in the kitchen. The smell of tea filled the room. The boy kept thinking about the man who had watched him play so closely, the one who had spoken to him afterward with real interest, not pity. The boy wondered if that man truly meant what he had said, whether he really believed the boy had something special, something worth shaping. His mother looked over and asked if he was feeling all right. He nodded and gave a short smile. He didn't want to worry her. She already carried enough stress on her shoulders, trying to keep their home running with the little income she earned. He wished he could tell her that everything would be okay one day, that things would change for them. But promises felt heavy, and he didn't want to give her words that he couldn't control. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. There was a knock at their door, and both he and his mother paused. They rarely had visitors. She walked over and opened it slowly. Standing there was the same man from the community center. He held a kind expression and greeted them softly. The boy's mother seemed confused at first, unsure why a stranger had come all the way to their home. The man introduced himself properly and explained that he had come to talk about the boy. The boy sat quietly, listening. The man said he worked with a small group that supported young musicians. He wasn't rich and he didn't make big promises, but he said he believed in helping children who had a real chance to grow. He explained that the boy had something rare, talent mixed with heart. It wasn't just about skill. It was about feeling, emotion, and the way his hands brought life to the piano. The man asked if the boy would be interested in proper lessons, not just the little bits he picked up by sneaking moments at old pianos. He said he could arrange something simple to start with. The boy's mother was shocked. She looked at her son, then at the man, unsure whether she should trust him. Life had taught her to be careful. People often made promises, and not all of them had good intentions. But the man insisted that he wasn't here to take advantage of them. He said he wanted to give the boy a chance that he might never get again. The boy watched his mother's face slowly soften. She wanted what was best for her son. She had seen how his eyes changed whenever he touched piano keys. After a moment of silence, she finally agreed. The man smiled warmly and told the boy that they would start later that week. He left their home with a sense of purpose, and the boy felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear rise in his chest. Something was changing. Something was becoming real. For the first time, the boy imagined a door opening in front of him instead of closing. When the first lesson day arrived, the boy dressed in clean clothes even though they were old and faded. He wanted to look respectful. His mother walked him to the small music studio the man had access to. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't shiny or modern. But to the boy it felt like a palace. Just seeing the piano waiting inside made his heart beat differently. The man welcomed him warmly and motioned for him to sit at the piano. The boy placed his hands on the keys, and for a moment he hesitated. He wasn't used to being watched closely. He used to play in corners where nobody cared. Now someone was observing him with real attention. The man asked him to play anything he knew. The boy took a slow breath and began to play the piece he had learned on his own years ago. It wasn't perfect, but it was full of feeling. The man watched with a kind of quiet wonder. When the boy finished, the man didn't clap or praise him loudly. Instead, he nodded slowly and said something the boy would never forget. "You understand the music, not just the notes. That is something nobody can teach." With that, the real lessons began. The man showed him how to correct his posture, how to move his hands more smoothly, how to hear the music in smaller parts instead of all at once. He didn't rush him or scold him when he made mistakes. Instead, He explained that mistakes were a normal and important part of learning. The boy practiced with all his heart. For the first time in his life, he felt as if he was doing something that belonged to him. Something that wasn't just about survival or trying to get through the day. Something that felt like purpose. As weeks passed, the man introduced him to new pieces. Some were simple. Some were more difficult. Whenever the boy struggled, the man reminded him that effort mattered more than perfection. Slowly, the boy's confidence began to grow. One day, after a long session, the man looked at him with a thoughtful expression. He said he wanted the boy to start preparing for a small performance that was coming up in a nearby hall. It wasn't a big event, but it would have an audience. The boy froze when he heard it. Performing in front of strangers sounded terrifying. He told the man he wasn't ready. He wasn't good enough. People laughed at him before. What if they laughed again? What if he made a mistake? What if the wrong note ruined everything? The man placed a steady hand on the boy's shoulder and said softly, "You've already lived through moments much harder than a performance. You have nothing to fear. And you won't be alone. I'll help you prepare." The boy didn't answer immediately, but he felt a small spark inside him. One that said maybe, just maybe, he could do it. Maybe he could stand on a stage not as someone trying to earn food, but as someone showing the world what he truly carried inside. His mother supported the idea too. She told him that sometimes opportunities came at unexpected moments, and he had to be brave enough to accept them. Her voice was full of hope, something he hadn't heard in years. So he agreed. The following days were intense. He practiced longer than he ever had. Some nights he fell asleep with his fingers still twitching as if they were pressing invisible keys. The man guided him through every difficulty, correcting his rhythm, helping him feel the flow of the music more deeply. There were moments when the boy doubted himself again. There were moments when he felt overwhelmed. But each time, the man reminded him why he started. Each time, the boy remembered the times he used to play on old broken pianos, wishing someone would see him. Now someone had. As the performance day approached, the boy's nerves grew stronger. But something else grew too. A quiet strength he didn't recognize at first. A sense that he wasn't doing this to impress anyone. He was doing it because the music was already inside him, waiting for the world to hear. And he was finally ready to let it be heard. The day of the performance arrived with the same mix of fear and hope he had always carried. But something inside him was different now. He walked toward the hall not as a boy begging for a piece of food, but as someone with a gift, someone who had worked hard for this moment. He didn't know what was waiting for him inside, but he stepped forward anyway, holding on to the belief that this was only the beginning of something far bigger than he ever imagined. The day of the performance arrived, and the boy woke up long before the sun rose. His eyes were open, but his mind felt heavy with thoughts that kept turning in circles. It was strange how a single moment could carry so much weight. He sat up slowly, feeling both ready and terrified at the same time. His mother had already prepared tea, and she watched him with quiet understanding. She didn't say much. She knew that sometimes silence was more comforting than words. As he drank the warm tea, the boy tried to steady his thoughts. He remembered the first time he had played for a piece of food. Back then, he wasn't thinking about music or skill. He was just trying to help his mother and survive one more day. People had laughed. Some had sneered. But he had kept playing because it was the only thing he knew how to do that made him feel alive. And now, he was standing on the edge of something he had never imagined. The man who had been teaching him arrived shortly after. He greeted the boy with a calm smile and asked if he was ready. The boy nodded, though he wasn't sure if he truly was. The man placed a hand on his shoulder and reminded him that fear was normal. Even the greatest musicians felt scared before walking on stage. What mattered was what he did despite the fear. Together, they made their way to the performance hall. The walk felt longer than usual. Every step seemed to echo in the boy's mind. When they finally reached the building, he paused at the entrance, staring up at the tall doors. The man beside him noticed the hesitation and said softly, "You belong here. Don't forget that." Those words settled into the boy's chest like a small flame, steady and warm. Inside, the hall was larger than he expected. The seats stretched out in wide rows, and the stage lights glowed softly as workers prepared everything. He had never been in a place like this before. It felt overwhelming, yet strangely beautiful. He followed the man backstage, where other performers were waiting. They were older, tall, confident, dressed neatly. Some warmed up their voices. Others stretched their fingers or read sheet music. The boy felt completely out of place. He didn't have fancy clothes, only the clean but old shirt his mother had ironed. He didn't have years of training. He didn't know the names of the techniques they used. For a moment, he considered backing out. He thought of walking right out of the hall and returning home, pretending none of this was happening. But then he remembered something. He remembered the nights he had played on a broken piano in the corner of a dusty room, hoping someone would hear him. He remembered the tears his mother thought he didn't see. He remembered the man who believed in him when nobody else did. And he remembered the music, the one thing that had never failed him. So he stayed. When it was almost time for him to perform, the man helped him tune his thoughts. He didn't rush him. He didn't push him. He simply reminded him that music wasn't about perfection. It was about emotion, about telling a story through sound. And the boy had lived a story worth telling. Soon, someone backstage called his name. His heart pounded so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. His hands felt cold. His legs felt weak. But he walked forward anyway. The stage lights hit him gently as he stepped out. The audience was silent, waiting. He swallowed hard and sat on the piano bench. The piano in front of him looked huge and polished, far better than anything he had ever touched before. He let his fingers hover above the keys, but he didn't play immediately. He closed his eyes first, letting the noise of the room fade away until all he could hear was his own breathing. Then he began. The first notes were soft, almost unsure. His fingers trembled slightly, but as he continued, the fear slowly melted. The music rose gently, then grew stronger. He played the melody he had practiced over and over, the one that held all the pieces of his life inside it. Hunger, hope, struggle, small joys, and the quiet dream he had carried for years. The audience leaned forward as if they could feel everything he was expressing through the keys. Even the other performers backstage paused to listen. There was a depth in his playing that didn't come from years of schooling but from life itself. Halfway through the piece, something unexpected happened. He forgot the crowd. He forgot the hall. He forgot the pressure. He simply played. His fingers moved like they had their own memory, guided by the rhythm he had always trusted. When the final note echoed through the hall, the boy slowly lifted his hands from the keys. For a moment, there was complete silence. He wondered if he had made a mistake, if he had disappointed them, if they were unimpressed. But then the hall erupted in applause. The sound washed over him like a wave, loud, warm, genuine. Some people even stood. He felt his chest tighten with emotion. He wasn't used to praise. He wasn't used to being seen this way. All he could do was sit there and let the moment sink in. The man rushed onto the stage, eyes shining with pride. He placed a gentle hand on the boy's back and told him he had done something incredible. The boy didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. Everything felt unreal. After the performance, several people approached him. Teachers, musicians, event organizers. They asked him about his background, his training, and his dreams. He answered shyly, telling them he had learned most things on his own. They looked surprised, impressed, even amazed. Many of them said they saw great potential in him. By the time he returned backstage, the boy felt overwhelmed with emotion. He sat down in a quiet corner, trying to process everything. The man joined him and explained that opportunities might start opening up. Real opportunities. Training programs, performances, scholarships. The boy listened quietly, unsure how to react. When he and the man finally left the hall and stepped outside, the cool evening air felt refreshing. The boy saw his mother waiting under a streetlight. The moment she saw him, she hurried over. Her eyes were filled with tears, but they were tears of pride. She hugged him tightly, whispering that he had made her the happiest mother in the world. The boy held on to her, feeling every part of the moment settle into his heart. He hadn't performed for fame. He hadn't performed for praise. He had performed because the music inside him finally had a place to breathe. That night, as they walked home together, the boy noticed something different in his mother's steps. She walked lighter, almost hopeful. He felt different too. Not because he had suddenly become important, but because he had discovered that even someone like him, someone who once played for a piece of food, could rise. Over the next weeks, the boy's life changed more than he ever imagined. He continued learning with the man who first believed in him. He attended more lessons. He practiced harder. And soon, he received an offer for a scholarship from a music academy. The letter said they wanted to support young talents who showed extraordinary promise. His mother cried again when she read it. Not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. She had once feared her son's future, wondering how she would ever give him more than what they had. Now, she saw a path opening in front of him. A path he had earned with his own hands. The boy accepted the scholarship. He studied with dedication, always remembering where he came from. He didn't try to erase his past or hide it. Instead, he used it. Every struggle, every moment of hunger, every time someone laughed at him, they had shaped his music. Years later, he would stand on bigger stages, performing for large audiences. People would admire his talent. They would speak about his natural gift, his depth, his emotion. Many would call him a genius. But he never forgot the truth. His journey didn't start with applause. It started with a simple wish to help his mother. It started with a boy sitting at an old piano, offering music in exchange for a piece of food. And because of that beginning, he played every note with gratitude. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because music had saved him, long before the world ever knew his name.